Hi everyone, this is Donna from Clever Crafters. Thanks for joining me again today. So we're going to make a nice and easy card today on a standard metric A6 card, which is 10.5 centimeters wide by 14.8 tall. And I'm going to put a matte card on this, which is in actual fact 5 millimeters all round smaller. I used the second largest of my metric rectangles to cut that. I love using the metric rectangles because they just cut everything perfectly every time. Then for my top layer, I've used the metric rectangles again, and this time I used the fourth largest one, so it gives me a little bit more of a border on my base card. Now, this is actually, the dragonfly one is actually what I'm making the card out of, but I did the tear first before I put my camera on, so I'm just using this other piece of pattern paper to show you how to do this. So I'm just using my water brush here. I'm just going to grab my rag and get some water moving. Now you can just do this with a normal paintbrush and some water by dipping it in water. This is a lovely little trick to make, your tearing a little bit more directional. For those of you that have been watching me for a little while or know me, I'm a little bit of a control freak. I like to make sure that everything's going to be just so. So this way it actually gives me the ability to control the tearing a little bit more, and it also means that I'm not going to have as much of a white edge. So all I'm doing is painting water on this. Now this particular piece of pattern paper is quite thick, so I need to put a little bit of water on it. But as you know, when water and paper mix, the paper becomes all soft and pliable. So this is exactly what I'm doing here, and you can see that when I turn over to the back there, it folded on that line where I put the water. So I'm just going over it a couple of times. I let it sit for a minute under normal circumstances, but now you can see all I'm doing is starting the tear, just laying it flat and pulling it apart, and it will tear directly along that watermark, which means I've actually been able to control the tearing. So now I'm going to go back to my dragonflies, which is the way I want my card to look. And all I'm doing now is measuring it. So as you know, I cut that card, that pattern paper with the fourth largest metric rectangle, but it's still going to be too big now because we're going to have a gap, the tear in the center. So I need to know how big to make that gap. So I've got my greeting, which is, it says special friend. And it's only a small greeting, and you can see I'm using my pencil to mark the top part that I need to cut off to allow for the space that's going to be in the middle of my card. So just using my Tim Holtz trimmer, and I've just trimmed the top off. So now I can measure that up and make sure that when I set it so it's even all the way around, I've got a nice gap in the middle. Perfect. So now what I need to do is know where I'm going to put my stamp. So I'm just using my pencils there to give me a pencil mark, which I will go back to in a minute. But before I do any stamping or before I stick anything on, I'm actually going to cut my greeting out of this matte piece because it's going to be covered by the patterned piece. So this achieves two things for me. First of all, it helps me save my card stock, which is, a money saving thing, which is perfect. The other thing is that the colors are going to match perfectly because I'm using exactly the same piece of cardstock. So that's really a win-win scenario. So now that I've cut my greeting out, I'm going to place this in my stamping platform. And I have already positioned my stamp. It's going to go in the correct spot. Because this is a dark color, I'm going to use white embossing powder on it. So I'm just using my embossing magic pad, which is really important to use that to make sure none of the embossing powder sticks where you don't want it. And some Versamark ink. And I'm using, so this is some Wow Pearl, and I thought, oh yeah, I'm going to put this on there. That would be awesome. This is a mistake, but I've left it in to show you all. So it looks lovely there, and I heat emboss it. And this pearl embossing powder is beautiful, but it goes clear and kind of takes the color from the background. So not real good for a greeting. So fine, I just flipped my card over and now I'm doing it on the other side. It's still going to work exactly the same, and this time of course I'm using some white embossing powder. Okay, so now I'm going to add some foam, craft foam, to the back of my paper, my pattern paper. So you can see that I'm positioning that so it's just a little bit over the edge, because I don't want it going right to the very edge, because then we'll see it. And I am literally just using my pencil and drawing around it. So now all you need to do is grab your scissors, and I just cut just inside that line that I've drawn on the craft foam. Craft foam's very easy to cut, so this is a nice easy process. For the bottom section, I've already cut the shape that I need at the bottom, so I literally just position the bottom one, draw around the sides and cut out the bottom one as well. I didn't show you that because you don't really need to see it twice. So you can see now that I've cut out the two pieces, and I'm just going to use some of my Smart Art glue, make sure I've got it round the right way, and going to pop some glue on it and stick it on the back of my patterned paper. So when I've done this, I like to make sure it goes flat. So I put it under a stamp block, or underneath maybe my stamping platform or my phone, something heavy or a little bit heavy, to keep it flat while it's drying. One of the big advantages, of course, of the Smart Art glue is that it doesn't take too long to dry, which is great. So we don't have to wait for very long. So you can see there I've got the second piece that I glued underneath the stamping block, while I am just gluing it together a few layers of my happy birthday. So what I'm doing there is I've just put a bit too much glue on it, so I'm just dabbing some of it off, so then it doesn't come squirting all around the edges. So I think I've already got 3 layers there, and I'm just putting the last layer on to show you how I do it. So these are part of a nice collection of words, greetings that I've got. I'll have links to these below anyway. And you can see the best way to do this, these are fine, but they're so pretty. And you just need to make sure that you line them up. I use my fingers to line them up, you know, just on the edges there. Lovely. So give it a good press when it's done to make sure that they're nice and sealed. And once again, you can put them under something heavy. You can see that I've put the happy and the birthday there, only just see it, underneath my block while I'm gluing the rest of this together. So I'm just putting some on my foam here. Of course, I forgot that I've got a big gap in the back of my card. So, well, I'm obviously going to get glue on piece of paper. All right, put a piece of paper underneath it and put that top piece in position. So I've stuck the word birthday on there, and I'm just putting some taps of glue on the back of my happy. Actually, I don't know if I've stuck the birthday. It might just be positioned there. I'm going to tap off that excess glue. This is also to stop any, you know, of the glue seeping out. Mind you, this glue dries clear and matte, so you can't see it anyway. All right, so now I'm just going to attach it to the card base. I've stuck a dragonfly on the front. You saw that just a minute ago. So I'm just going to put some glue all over this. It's probably a little bit of an overkill with the glue, really, but, you know, that was fun. And of course, you've got a couple of minutes to make sure that that's positioned. I didn't check that time to make sure the card was opening correctly, but it did, which is great. So here's my finished card. You can see that I've put a couple of extra bits of bling on there. It's a nice and easy card. It's a lovely card to send out to somebody. So I hope you enjoyed this today and learned something. If you try to make this card, I'd love to see your creations on our Facebook page. Just look for Gold Coast Crafters, but I'll have a link below as well. Thank you once again for joining me. And if you enjoyed it, I'd love you to hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.